Okay, I'm ready now. Yep, go ahead.
Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting is called to order on July 9th, 2020 at 7:01 p.m. Roll call. Chair Stringfellow.
Here.
Vice Chair Mall.
Here.
Trustee Liaison Danforth.
Present.
Davenport.
Here.
Member Giblin.
I'm here.
Member Mahowald.
Here.
And alternate member Roger Cornell.
Here.
Awesome. Okie dokie. Next up is approval of the minutes from January, way back when life seemed normal.
It did.
Is there any
So the
discussion?
minutes that are in the packet are not the corrected ones that Cynthia sent out. So everyone should have received the corrected copy.
Upload to the newer packet, they should be. What I sent in the packet, it was a mistake. I said that both Mark Stringfellow and Roger were absent, but then they were making motions. So I corrected that. My apologies. Motions in absentia, Mark.
My specialty. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the January meeting?
So moved. From Roger.
Second. Okay.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
It was Billy.
Tom.
It was the second. Oh, and Tom, apparently.
Yeah.
At the same time.
It was Tom. I was trying to unmute me to it. So
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Tom with a second. Gotcha. Okay. And for roll call, was everybody, I think everybody was on this board last fall, so everybody should be able to vote for the minutes unless anyone was absent in January. But we'll go through
Nope,
this. It seemed like everybody was present in January, so I believe we had no absent after I corrected that. So we'll go do a roll call. Member Giblin? Approval of the January.
I approve them. I approve them. Yes.
Alternate member Cornell?
Yes.
Member Mahowald?
Yes.
Member Davenport?
Yes.
Trustee Liaison Danforth?
I was not a trustee or a liaison at that point.
Oh, yeah, you make a good point. You are our abstention. Thank you. Abstention. Lindsay. And Vice Chair Mall?
Yeah. Yes.
And Chair Stringfellow?
Yes.
Did I miss anyone?
I think we're complete.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion passes.
So the bulk of tonight's discussion is to start the Envision 2030 conversation. So on June 26th, I emailed you all asking you to respond to some strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat questions with the request that you responded back by last Friday, and I received responses from 4 BZA members. So tonight we just want to engage in a relatively brief discussion about the answers that were provided to see if you have anything else you want to add or talk about. Again, your answers should be specific to the BZA. If you are interested in giving feedback on the town as a whole, we ask that you complete our survey, which is online on our website. Now I can send that out after the meeting. So that being said, the first question, is what are the greatest accomplishments of the BZA over the last decade? So the kind of unanimous statements from people who sent them in was just that you've had very limited variance requests. And in general, your rulings have been positive and are often not challenged. Is there anything else you all view as an achievement over the last decade, or anything else you want to add?
I'd say that the training that we've been receiving has been fantastic.
And is that the training from Cynthia? From who's the training by?
Well, I think initially we had training from the town attorney, and then we had a couple of opportunities to get some training from. I think it was the folks down in one of the other jurisdictions, and it was Jeffco, I think, wasn't it, Cynthia?
Jeffco, it was, exactly. And that was a year or 2 years ago. They did a virtual, an in-person hearing, and we were able to tap in virtually and listen. And it was a great bit of training.
That's awesome. Okay. Cool, I've added that. Thanks, Debbie. Anything else that you all can think of? I know that, a comment was made that obviously the BZA is pretty tied, it's obviously tied to code, so that does become very challenging, but I do think the decrease in number of variances has a big part of it. So let me skip to the next question, which is, what is your most valuable asset? A number of you named Cynthia as a valuable asset because she's able to direct property owners before they even purchase a property on what might require a variance. And also it was really noted that you have experienced members who bring a lot of knowledge to the BZA, as well as new members who bring enthusiasm and fresh perspectives. And that the BZA also can easily interact with town staff who help to make the process go smoothly. Are there any other assets that you all would add?
I think that having staff recommendation is very helpful too, because we always like to listen to that before we even start our discussions, and so it's really great to have that perspective, because I know that staff really goes through a lot of review before we even see the cases, and so it's really great to get their take on it. So
awesome.
I think also, I think one of our valuable assets is that we're able to weigh in with all the information that's provided by the applicants, also by town staff, and make a decision with a positive outcome most of the time. And so I want to thank all the board for all the work that they do before and during the meetings, so we can be decisive and make good decisions that are very rarely challenged. So thank you all on the board and also town staff.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think something else that's happened in the last, I don't know, Mark, you'll probably remember this, but maybe last 10 years is it was a little gray for a while how many of the 5 criteria we were supposed to be, applying with respect to hearing cases. Was it a majority or was it all of them? And I think there was a determination at some point, I don't remember what year it was, but that all 5 criteria needed to be met. And I think that made it a little bit less gray for all of us, because that was just, that was a little disconcerting if we didn't really have a guideline. So that was really important to know that we have, all 5 criteria need to be met. And I think the applicants have been doing a really good job of stating their case before they even apply, so that when they come, they're prepared to answer why they feel like that their particular case meets all the 5 criteria. So that just really makes it go well for us when we're trying to discuss things with them.
And maybe you can help fill me in, maybe Mark, was that to kind of clear up that gray? Did that occur through a municipal code cleanup, or how did we make that change? So where
Part of it was through training, and part of it was through code. And we've had some work sessions where we've been able to be very clear on what the criteria is, how those have to be met, and what we can take into consideration and what we aren't allowed to take into consideration. So from that perspective, I think we're pretty well versed in what latitude we have making any decision. And again, thanks everybody for doing a great job on getting on board with that. And that again lets us be decisive, so we don't have to leave people hanging.
And I would I believe there was an ordinance passed, and Mark, one of you Marks may remember this. I'm thinking, or Debbie may remember. It was probably in the range of 2010 to 2012, maybe a little bit before my time when I came to town in 2013. But that ordinance was already in place, and I believe before that happened, you couldn't alter your house if there was nonconformance. And then they realized that they were kind of turning into a variance factory of cranking out variances. And the attorney said, yeah, if you're after making this many case by case decisions, you have a problem with your code and you should address your code. And so when they made this ordinance, and I don't remember the ordinance number, they allowed it. They changed it to say you can't further exacerbate. So you can never make it worse. You can try to make it better, but you can't make it worse. So if somebody doesn't meet a setback on the front, they can't do an addition on the front and make it worse. But if there's no issue on the back, we would let them do an addition. And I think that eased up some of the pressure on the board and allowed us to look at things in a more practical manner that work with the community. And I do stress the 5 conditions when I talk to people and let them know that it's their song and dance they're going to have to make before the board. And that condition of the applicant cannot create the hardship is a bit of a hard sell, because generally anyone who's proposing something to you is proposing to create their own hardship. However, as in the case of any of these, it wasn't the board members who platted the lot, and it's not generally the applicant who platted the lot or created the topographical conditions that may be peculiar to the site. So I think people understand they either need to do a really good job making the case for themselves. And I really stress that, because I think in other places, they can just go get a variance. Like they just walk in and they get a variance, and I let them know there's a whole process here, and it's time, money, and energy you're going to have to involve yourself with, and you have to make the case to them. And so I think really stressing that after giving people the information, they either feel confident they're going to go through the process and they're determined, or they decide, this is a little much and maybe I'll take this on at a later time, but they at least understand the process.
Yeah, you see what it says at the top there, where the BZA in collaboration help improve the town codes. The codes used to read where if there was any non-compliance, they had to apply for a variance. And then they cleaned that up. Otherwise, it was a kind of a variance factory going on there.
And that was about the same time they started addressing all of the non-conforming lots of record. So I think that was, you were correct, Cynthia. I think it was about 2010, 2011, if my memory serves me correctly.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I think, Cynthia, I'd love to highlight that as something that has occurred in the last decade. So maybe you could help me track down that ordinance, so we can include that in this process.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of what I heard from board members when I came in 2013. And we had more requests previously and during the time that I've been with the town. And I'm not stopping people from doing variances. But I am letting them, I'm helping them to understand and trying to give them a good idea when I look at a lot, especially if I'm familiar with the site. But even if I'm not familiar with the site, I look at it, I note the area and say, okay, I can see that, with the shape of this lot or with the topography you're talking about, you may have a good case for a variance, or I think you have a good case for variance. But anyone can say, that's great, Cynthia, I'm still going to go to the board. And I'm going to pay for my variance and go through it. And even if I disagree, they can go forward. It's their money. It's their energy. I just have experience with this, and they can either take what I'm saying and utilize it or not, if they want to push forward. But generally, I think most people are hearing that. And if, you know, if I say, I don't think you can make a good case for that, I think a lot of people, you know, understand that I'm trying to look at it really explicitly as for the property itself. And that the whole intention is you're making a variance request and it's on the proposal and the property, not on the person.
Yep. Great.
In addition, Cynthia, as far as in addition to screening the applicants, you do a good job of getting the last bunch we've had they've come to us unbelievably well prepared. And you really help coach them with that.
I'd say it's money with the town. So I like to let people know what's going on before they put the money on the barrelhead so they don't feel like the town is just there to take their money. I like them to really understand a process and feel confident, because it can be scary for folks to go quote unquote testify on a stand. And that is what your board does as a quasi-judicial board, is make a very judicial decision. So I like to let them understand it's really important and to take it seriously, and to understand the board members who are sitting on these boards are very, very intelligent, and the quality of your materials says a lot about what you think of the intelligence of the people you're presenting to. And that's I think lent to improvement in the stuff we're seeing.
And part of this whole process that I think has turned into an asset time-wise is for some of the newer members, you might not know, but we used to meet monthly, and now we meet quarterly, and sometimes we don't have anything on the agenda. So that, again, I think is an asset as far as not wasting people's time and being more efficient about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. So the next strange question is, what makes the Nederland BZA unique? And there weren't a lot of answers, but the one answer was that there is actually a separate BZA for a town with only 715 structures.
Now, who did their homework to find that out?
Who counted them?
Yeah.
Tom counted them. I'm going to call them out.
I want to recount them.
Busted, Tom.
Tom, where did you get that number from?
Thank you, Tom.
I get everything from Cynthia. It used to be 714, but I'm changing that.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yes. Is there anything else besides the fantastic count that you feel like makes the BZA unique here?
Just that we're in Nederland.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you have a mountain community that has really odd-shaped lots on interesting terrain with water and all kinds of other things going through people's property, I mean, you're going to have peculiar situations for folks that are, you know, trying to improve their properties. And so I think it's, you know, if we were out in the suburbs and it was more of a PUD or, you know, that kind of thing, it would be a completely different ballgame. And so I think we have some really interesting cases to look at just because of where we live and the way that the lots were created probably before the zoning ordinances came into play. And so you've got some strange non-conforming lots on steep terrain with rock outcroppings and water and all kinds of other strange things. So I think it's challenging and fun to try to see the creativity that people are able to put into trying to make their homes and businesses work up here. So
I would agree. I think that's a really great point. And it's, you know, I do tell people that when I'm talking to applicants of, you know, we do have some undersized lots. We do have some wonky shaped lots. That is an acknowledgement. We do have a lot of, and you know, that helps folks to understand we've got some weird stuff in the mix, and there are outlets for it. Again, you know, I will tell someone this is a really good case for a variance. It's a strange shaped lot and it would be hard to develop. And so I think that gives people a little bit of confidence they can come forward. And that it's not, you know, this isn't something that's never been seen before in the town, that there's quite a few.
I definitely think that definitely makes it unique. Okay, kind of moving along, we've got weaknesses, which is not, or areas of improvement. The first question is, has been the BZA's biggest challenge over the last decade? And there was only one response, but one of the concerns is that the BZA in the past has come to being short on members, where you wouldn't have enough for even a quorum. Are there any other challenges that you all have had to face over the last decade?
Yeah, this technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I added that in the other section. So one other
I
comment
knew that was.
technology.
This is Tom. I'd love to get something like that Jeff code training in the code. We haven't needed to bone up on the code because we haven't had a case to look over yet, but I'd rather not wait.
Are you saying, Tom, to add it so that training is required?
No, I'd like to. I feel like I'm undereducated for what I might be called upon to do.
I'd be happy to share that training with you.
Good.
I can provide a link on Monday. I'm off tomorrow. It's my birthday. Sorry, folks. Monday, I'll hit you with that training link.
Good. Yeah. I feel like I need to put some time in before it becomes absolutely necessary.
Oh.
Okay.
It was good. They went over a lot of materials, and it was a video, so you can watch the video and listen in. And I think that there were some applicable situations that could apply to Nederland. So it was a great training.
Great.
Miranda, this is Roger.
We can hear you.
I thought that part of what I wrote in was that, so I don't know if this is right down weakness or opportunities, but I had written to mention that I thought that, once a year, at the beginning of each year, at some point, that we would actually go over the 2 pages of that code and review that and have a group discussion on the pros and cons of that code, but just kind of do a refresher of the 2 pages of the code that we work from. That was my suggestion.
I put that under what should be the BZA's main, we can skip to that one, what should be the BZA's main focus area for immediate improvement, because there's two members of the board who said becoming more familiar with the code and then really understanding previous cases, which ties into a separate comment that maybe it would be helpful if town staff created a book of previous cases so you guys could know the rulings of those and there was that historical information that could be reviewed, new members along with the code.
Fantastic.
Does anyone, we can kind of skip to this one. Does anyone else have anything that they feel like is important to focus on immediately to improve the BZA? Besides training and code, revisiting code?
No, I think we're fully staffed. We've got a good team, and when the time comes, we will be ready. So I think for a town this size and a building portfolio this size, we're in good shape.
Does anyone else have any possible immediate areas of improvement or challenges that we need to overcome? Okay. So the next question in this weakness is the last one is, what are some of the disadvantages of being a small mountain community as it relates to the BZA? And 2 of you had noted that just sometimes that interpersonal relations is a challenge when you know people, because we're such a small town, that some people feel like you might rule in their favor because they do know you. So that interpersonal challenge. Do people agree, or is there anything else that you feel like creates a disadvantage being so small?
Yeah, that was one that I put forward, Tom, and I'm new. So, but I was speculating. I don't know if people have been on the board longer have ever had this happen.
Yes.
Okay.
We've recused ourselves. If we have, like, if somebody's a client and they are and they're presenting a case, then I know I've personally recused myself, and that just makes it more fair, because then you don't have a biased opinion, trying to influence other people, and it just I don't know, since it is a judicial hearing, it seems like it's a little bit more fair to do that instead of, trying to pretend like you don't have a relationship with the applicant.
Right. Yeah, I just don't. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of disadvantages of. I don't see a lot of disadvantages of being a small mountain town. It's almost immaterial. But I cut somebody off, so I think it was Deb. Why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, no, it was Miranda, and I
Okay.
cut you off. I think that the concern, and maybe Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's less so on BZA members recusing themselves, and maybe more on the part of the community feeling like they can manipulate or take advantage of those relationships, which may be inappropriate on their part.
Yeah.
Okay. Which
That's
again,
fair.
I think goes back to Cynthia and the training Cynthia does. I think it's because she really hits those 5 points and lets people know that if you don't meet the criteria, it's not even worth pursuing. My hope is that really cuts down on that, and that you can't hit 4 out of the 5, and just because you're friends with Tom, you get it passed. And so that staff being really upfront with clear and concise information, I think that will help, or does help, with that situation.
Yeah,
Cynthia,
in my
would you
experience,
agree?
this is Tom again. We had this conversation before we even purchased property, which was enormously helpful to know what we're stepping into. And I would expect that everybody that comes in the way I did gets the same treatment with no favor. And it was remarkably helpful to help us make our purchase decision or not.
Cynthia, would you agree with that? Kind of, as long as staff set the right expectation, that helps with the potential bias concern?
I think so. I mean, I let folks know this is your song and dance, and that you make the case, and that your proposal makes the case, and it's a property, and the board cannot consider your financial considerations, or you're sick or other things. As much as they're conscious folks and very kind, they're very practical, and their specific conditions they can consider are these, and that's it. And so you as an applicant really have to go long and sell your story to them. And I point out Dave McIlvain, who came to see us last year, and how he had pictures from different parts of his yard. I used him as my model example because he did such an excellent job at the board and really made the case for himself. I mean, he helped, and that's what I explain to applicants is you want to do such a good job explaining it that you're basically handing them the answers. You're handing them a yes. So you are doing that. And I think, understand. And even if they say, oh, I know Debbie or I know Mark, it's like, well, great. In the capacity of a board, they're going to look at these specific conditions, and any knowledge of you or whatever, if there's no conflict of interest, that's not coming into play. That's not how we do biz. So I think it does help that we stress those conditions, and that it lessens some of the quote unquote judgment that may be put on the decisions that I think the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees have to go through. But I think the Board of Zoning Adjustment really gets to stand behind the 5 conditions. And I also explain to folks, if you don't have your design in mind, and you have some flexibility, board members can look at this and they can say, because one of the conditions is that you will get the minimum variance to grant relief. And so if they think you can do it in 5 because you can change your design, then they're not going to give you a 10-foot variance. They'll give you 5. So you really have to consider that way of, if you're really hung on a certain idea, then it may be challenging for you. But if you are more flexible, I mean, unless you're just in a situation where you have no other choice and this is the best you got. But in many cases, if you change your design, and these are intelligent folks who many of them work in the building capacity, and they understand that, you can maybe get what you need and, do the variance request. But I also always suggest to people, if you cannot put your hand in the fate of other folks and you can do it without a variance, that's what I would do. And most people are like, all right, I hear that, Cynthia, that's a good idea. And then you don't spend the time, money, and energy and wait for other people to decide your fate for you. And I think a lot of people hear that too.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention, one of the assets of this board is that it's good because it's for concrete thinkers, and I'm a concrete thinker. Whereas, for the other boards that make more policy oriented, it's not as concrete, and that's good for some people, and but it's helpful. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, what's the next item we want to get to? Oh, did we lose everybody?
I'm still
Did
here,
we
but
lose?
I can hear you, Mark.
I'm
Yeah.
still here. I don't know if Miranda's having any issues.
No, I had myself muted by accident. Sorry. So the next
Okay.
one is what program services or amenities does the BZA offer today that are not currently available? The two examples were a casebook of what's come before the BZA over the last 10 years that outlines what the issues were and the resolutions. And the other was for the BZA members to take an opportunity to educate citizens on variance requests and when it would be appropriate to potentially enhance properties or neighborhoods. Is there anything else? Cynthia, how challenging would it be to create a case book like that? I mean, I don't know how many have come before. Sounds like there used to be a lot. So.
I think there used to be a lot in the 7 years I've been with the BZA. Golly, at 7, probably less.
Okay.
wow.
Well,
I mean, we've had some whole years where we've only met in January.
Yeah.
I think what we could do is take some time and really look at, how much that would take. I don't think it's a terrible idea, and having an online resource would be appropriate as we try to enhance our website. So
Sure.
I'm marking that down as something we could look into.
Mm-hmm.
I read Dave's case, which was the model on the upside. I'm sure there's a model on the downside.
I think it's definitely something we can mark.
You left out my example about how good is your cell phone capability nowadays. Good board would be thanks to that.
Did break up yours, Mark. I broke yours up into additional as well.
What's that?
I broke some of your comment up into the additional comments and took like bits and pieces. But thank you for adding that.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is what resources does the BZA lack right now? And none of you had any responses. Does anyone have anything that comes to mind in terms of resources that you are lacking?
I can't think of any resources that we would need that we don't have. Essentially, a lot of this is looking at what's on paper, looking at what's on site, connecting with our peers and making a decision. So I don't feel under-resourced at all.
Okay, cool.
Miranda, it's Roger. Can I go back to that, some service and amenities we could do? What you were just talking about, trying to get the book. I mean, I've actually done this with the look for even meetings for the BOT and the Planning Commission, that if we actually just had a link of just the minutes for meetings, so you could actually see there was a meeting and a link that you could actually look on the minutes. So that was actually, I don't know how hard that would be, but that would actually, for me, would be a start. I would want it more with the BOT and the planning. But if you go back, like you say, just 5 or 10 years, and people go back and look, well, here was minutes for some people that came and did this, and that would at least give people an understanding of what happened in that. So if we could just have an archive of minutes, that would be helpful, I believe.
Yeah, I definitely think our goal is to turn all of our minutes into an electronic copy, and so I definitely think that is possible to go.
That would be a start. That would be a big start.
Okay.
Especially if it was like a PDF and you could search it to find things, and just randomly going through all the minutes could be just daunting or really just time consuming. So
Just pointers.
for it to be searchable would be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. we can do that.
That's certainly true of the BOT, but where the BZA, like Cynthia said, you know, one action that I agree with you 100%, but with just a minimum of minutes, because sometimes there's one action per year, so it'd be easy to see that. But boy, when it gets to the BOT, then boy, it becomes very, very hard when you're looking for, you know, a particular action that they took. I agree, that would be great. That actually works very, very well with the code, where you can put in, you know, a word for the code, you know, and, you know, say housing or subdivision, and see everything where that comes up over and over again. You can actually find it. So that's actually unbelievably useful, the new tool that we have with the town code.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, our Civic Web, actually, I think we've underutilized it quite a bit. It's kind of a subset of our website, and it does have those features where you could upload every PDF we have, and if you type a word, it'll pull up any document that's similar or has that word in it.
Yep, that's great. Fantastic.
Okay, so the next question was, what obstacles does the BZA face? And some of the comments were, while the structure, you know, while there's concrete guidance for the BZA decisions, it does get challenging when you're having to interpret certain items, especially kind of as it came to some of the town vision specific to solar power and green proposals. And the other one was just technology and computers. It's especially hard right now during COVID, but the heavy reliance on technology can be challenging for individuals who are not technologically savvy and can have a devastating impact on productivity and efficiency. Are there any other obstacles that you feel like the BZA faces?
I was going to be a wise guy and say resistance to technology, but I won't.
Okay, so I'm not going to necessarily recap all the additional things that you all brought up, but our last question is there anything else that you want to add to the Envision 2030 process for us to consider specific to the BZA as we move forward?
I kind of I appreciate being able to do this online. Just when we're having a meeting amongst ourselves, it wouldn't work well with a public hearing, but it seems like it might be a lot less difficult for Cynthia and other people who live out of town and need to get home and just get dinner and stuff. It just seems like it works really well to be able to dial in, and if somebody's out of town, they can still participate and be part of the so then we don't have to keep trying to find a time to meet where we can get a quorum. So this, when we're just doing our quarterly meetings, if we don't have specific, hearings that we're doing, it seems like it might be not a bad idea if it saves town time and money setting up meetings at the hall, just to be able to get our information taken care of and do this remotely if people don't really want to.
I agree.
It's hard to do hybrid meetings right now. We just don't have the technological capabilities. However, I did locate a grant that could potentially provide us with the funds we need to allow that those who want to come in person can, but also we'd be able to remotely dial in people who either can't or just are not comfortable, especially during COVID, because we know some people do prefer the in-person format. So we're looking into ways that we can upgrade the multi-purpose room to allow for that hybrid approach.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. I remember asking to attend a meeting before the COVID and everything once. It wasn't BZA, it was a BOT, and don't have that technology or that option, but it really would be a good option. It's an option that's used in many businesses and forums, and if there's a legal thing where we can't with making decisions, I guess it's one thing, but if you can, I mean, this is just a good technology at our disposal.
Yeah, I'm finding that I'm on a few other boards, and the participation in these boards across the board, from board members and from people that are across the country, has been really encouraging. I'm continuously surprised and delighted at how well it works for some.
Yes, I definitely think we want to make sure that we're finding a way to allow everyone to participate. You know, we did have a discussion at the board meeting about people who, for childcare or elderly care reasons, can't attend meetings. And so how great a hybrid option would be for them who just want to listen in. So we are investing time and resources into figuring out how to make that happen.
Yeah, and watching the BOT on Tuesday night, that's a bigger audience, and it's a bigger board and a bigger citizens constituency, and it seems to work pretty well.
Yes, I agree, definitely. Anything else that you want us to consider? This will not be our last time to probably reconnect, but anything else you want us to consider as we move forward?
I would only say that the board members, as I've seen them, we have such fast meetings. They spend more time chatting after the meeting, catching up with each other than we do in the length of the meeting if we don't have a hearing. So I imagine some of you actually, yeah, I miss you. And I imagine that some of you guys miss each other and connecting after the meeting, because we meet pretty infrequently. And when we meet, Mark runs a pretty quick meeting too. So we've had a 2-minute meeting before, actually. So
That's awesome.
Well, I think we can keep this one pretty quick unless you guys have more. And feel free to email if there's something that comes up afterwards that you think you want to add. Don't hesitate to email. And then I would also encourage you all to take the survey that is community-wide. It asks the exact same questions, but it just asks you about Nederland as a whole, not specific to the DVA. So I'll send out that link. But if there's
one last question, what is the 2030, or we're redoing the 2020 into 2030? What's the process? What's the calendar look like for the rest of the year?
We're going to look through the rest of the year. So currently for the next 2 months, we're working on a baseline where we look at kind of current and past, our successes and our challenges. Then the next phase will be more of a strategic planning where we'll develop vision statements with goals and objectives. And then we'll work on kind of target measurements of performance. And so how do we take one of those large 10-year overarching goals and break it into ideally and yearly goals? So we won't start those processes, though, probably until mid-September. But our goal is to ideally finish the Envision 2030 and build Vision 2030, which will be the formal document by the end of this year. COVID and the challenges with not being able to do it in person, that may obviously delay things, but that is our goal.
Okay. Good.
Is there a group or a committee that is the task force?
We have not developed the task force yet, so right now we're just getting the information, which we're just I'm pulling it all together. And then as a part of that strategic planning phase, that's when we'll be asking for task force related to specific topic areas. We're just trying to see what are the themes that we're seeing through all the feedback we're collecting.
Terrific.
So we'll definitely keep you all posted because we'd love input from all the boards and we'd love people to sit on those committees. We're having to be kind of fluid with the process just because of the impact COVID has and our inability to meet in person.
Makes sense. It wasn't 2 minutes, but it was worthwhile.
Well, thanks, guys. A lot of good input, and we covered a lot of territory in short order, and we'll have follow-up on all this and get back in touch with everybody about some training. I'll be tomorrow. You're out, Cynthia. You're going to be in on Monday?
Yes.
All right. I will come by around 10-ish, and we'll see what we can put together on that.
Gotcha.
With that said,
Trustee Danforth, thanks for bowling us over with all your opinions.
You are welcome.
The power of the mute button.
Does anybody have any other business they'd like to discuss tonight?
No.
It's Bill. I just got one quick thing. So I am not the planning commission, and Miranda posed the question to me because I guess I thought I didn't even be on both. But the question if I wanted to, and I'm just kind of going back. I kind of want to get your guys' opinion. We should open this up to someone else.
What was your question, Billy?
Yeah, this is Miranda. Sorry, I lost Roger. My phone died, so I have to call him back in. So I missed your question, Billy. Can you say it again?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I am now on the planning commission. For some reason in my mind, I thought that would mean I could not be on the PTA as well. It turns out I have the choice to either be on or not. I was kind of listening to your feedback about that. I wondered about opening up this seat to someone else in the community.
Do we have more people that want us and that express an interest?
Well, May had applied back in January or so, when they may.
So Roger's trying to give a comment, but you may not be able to hear them. Roger, will you start over? And so we'll see if we can hear you. Can you guys hear him?
I would like to hear his comment.
I don't see Roger on.
It's just so one of the projects that it's kind of clear the way our rules are written and our the status that we have with the planning commission. That's one of the items that we want to go through to make sure that that's very, very clear. In the meantime, you should just continue on until we actually get clarity or change the rule that makes it clear. So that's where that should stand for right now.
Okay.
So Roger, that's one piece of the code that's a little bit confusing and that needs to be clarified. And he said that he recommends you stay on in this role until that has become more clarified with the code.
All right, I definitely really appreciate Roger's feedback on that, and I'll do that.
Good. Great.
And Roger has, he's the planning commission chairman, and he has served as an alternate on the Board of Zoning Adjustment for many, many years, my entire time. And it's helpful in some senses because the meat of what you guys talk about is in chapter 16, and the planning commission is dealing with chapter 16 and 17. So that sort of technical information is beneficial to have on both ends. So the more that people immerse themselves in either this explicit code section for BZA and or for Roger and for Billy, with the rest of the entire zoning chapter and chapter 17, the more benefit that it is for, I think for all of us.
Terrific.
Unless we have strongly interested in joining the board. And then I think that's very gracious of you to say, hey, I could give up this position and focus on the planning commission. But I think it's beneficial to have folks who are aware of the content of what we review and immerse themselves in that knowledge.
Well, thanks. That's really good insight.
Billy, just so you know, the one person you and I had talked about, when another vacancy came open, she was not interested. When Tom and Debbie's renewal came up, she was not interested in applying. And I would say the other person who is strongly interested is also a planning commissioner. So you basically be trading, one with dual roles for another person with that same dual role.
Okay. I think I'll sit tight then, and I appreciate you guys' feedback. And obviously, if the code were to, then just let me know. But happy to help and serve you guys.
Thanks, Billy.
Okay, is there any other business, or do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion from Billy. Billy with the motion.
Yeah. Tom with a second.
And Tom with a second.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 7:50 p.m. on July 9th, 2020. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Happy birthday. Happy homeowner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You guys take care. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Same.
Bye.
Thank you all.
That was too painful, right, Mark Mole?
No, it worked.